Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to the participants in the meet, as well as all the participants through streaming live through YouTube. The Goa State Legal Services Authority, in collaboration with the Constitutional Law Club of Vidya Vikas Mandal, Govind Ramnath Kare College of Law, commemorates Law Day today. It is my pleasure to accord a warm welcome to the Lordship Justice R.M.S. Khandeparkar, former Judge, Bombay High Court, to the Member Secretary, Madam Sainara Lad, to the principal, staff, students of the institution, the proud citizens of the country. Without further ado, I request Madam Sainara Lad, Member Secretary, Goa State Legal Services Authority, to accord a formal welcome and undertake the pleasant task of introducing the Lordship. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Roseanne. First of all, let me wish you all Happy Law Day, Happy Constitution Day, and a great day. Constitution Day or Samvidhan Divas is celebrated annually in India on 26 November. On this day in 1949, the Constituent Assembly of India formally adopted the Constitution of India that came into force on 26 January 1950. On behalf of the Goa State Legal Services Authority and the Constitutional Law Club of BVM's Govind Ramnath Kare College of Law, I welcome you all for this webinar. It's a pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Honorable Shri Justice R.M.S. Khandeparkar, as I have interacted with him on professional basis long before he was elevated as Judge of the High Court. He is a soft-spoken man with a shy smile. He enrolled as advocate in the year 1973 and started his independent practice in the year 1979 after working under a senior advocate. He has been General Secretary of All Goa Advocates Association as well as of Goa High Court Bar Association. During his practice, he appeared in many important matters representing the central government as he was appointed as Central Government Standing Counsel since the year 1986. He had been Senior Standing Counsel for the Defense Services for Southern India since the year 1992. He was also appointed as Special Prosecutor for Customs and Central Excises Department of Central Government of Goa. Honorable Shri Justice R.M.S. Khandeparkar had the occasion to deliver important judgments, including prohibition of bullfights in Goa, for proper regulation of electricity supply in Goa, confirmation of Konkani language of Goa, and also proper implementation of environmental laws in Goa, and likewise many other matters in the state of Maharashtra. After completing his tenure as High Court Judge, he was appointed as President of Central Excise Customs and Services Tax Tribunal at New Delhi for 3 years. After retirement, he has been appointed as Chairman of Goa State Police Complaints Authority at Goa from 2013 till 2018. I welcome Honorable Shri Justice R.M.S. Khandeparkar on this important day where we are observing Law Day or Constitution Day with a talk on Know Your Duties before exercising your rights. Welcome, sir.
There seems to be some technical issue. Please bear with us for 2 minutes. My Lordship, the inconvenience is regretted, and we accord a warm welcome to you.
She has to start. Sound is not coming.
I would request Madam Sayanara Talislad, Member Secretary, Goa State Legal Services Authority, to accord a formal welcome to the Lordship, Justice RMS Khandeparkar, former Judge, High Court of Bombay.
First of all, let me wish you all Happy Law Day, Happy Constitution Day, and a great day. Constitution Day or Samvidhan Divas is celebrated annually in India on 26 November. On this day, in 1949, the Constituent Assembly of India formally adopted the Constitution of India that came into force on 26 January 1950. On behalf of the Goa State Legal Services Authority and the Constitutional Club of VVMS Govind Ramnath Kare College of Law, I welcome you all for this webinar. It's a pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Honorable Shri Justice RMS Khandeparkar. As I have interacted with him on professional basis long before he was elevated as Judge of the High Court. He is a soft-spoken man with a shy smile. He enrolled as advocate in the year 1973 and started his independent practice in the year 1979 after working under a senior advocate. He has been General Secretary of All Goa Advocates Association as well as of Goa High Court Bar Association. During his practice, he appeared in many important matters representing the central government as he was appointed as Central Government Standing Counsel since the year 1986. He had been Senior Standing Counsel for the Defense Services as well for Southern India since the year 1992. He was also appointed as Special Prosecutor for Customs and Central Excises Department of Central Government of Goa. Honorable Shri Justice RMS Khandeparkar had the occasion to deliver important judgments, including prohibition of bullfights in Goa for proper regulation of electricity supply in Goa, confirmation of Konkani language of Goa, and also proper implementation of environmental laws in Goa, and likewise many other matters in the state of Maharashtra. After completing his tenure as High Court Judge, he was appointed as President of Central Excise Customs and Services Tax Tribunal at New Delhi for 3 years. After retirement, he has been appointed as Chairman of Goa State Police Complaints Authority at Goa from 2013 till 2018. I warmly welcome Honorable Shri Justice RMS Khandeparkar on this important day where we are observing Law Day or Constitution Day with a talk on know your duties before exercising your rights. Welcome, sir.
Shall I start?
Yes, Lordship, please.
Respected viewers and my dear students, it is always a pleasure to speak to the students. Unfortunately, today I can't directly mix up with the students in the present situation. Nevertheless, it's a pleasure to speak to you. You all know that after the independence, a Constituent Assembly constituted a committee for drafting the Constitution for India, and the same was drafted and presented to the Constituent Assembly in February 1948, which was after thorough and extensive deliberation was adopted on 26 November 1949. And that is why the 26th November is being celebrated as the Constitutional Day. The foundation of the Constitution of India is obviously the Government of India Act 1935. But certainly credit goes to the Constituent Assembly for introduction of the fundamental rights and directive principles in the Constitution. The Constitution is not merely a pragmatic result of sacrifice of numerous martyrs and struggle for freedom of innumerable freedom fighters. It reflects the general aspiration and hope of the people of this holy land. It certainly highlights pious wish of our founding fathers to give qualitative life to their progeny. It endeavors to ensure socio-economic rights to less educated and ignorant and unfortunate masses of this country. The cherished goals of our Constitution are found crystallized in the preamble, which inspires for justice, social, economic, and political, liberty of thought, expression and belief, freedom of worship, equality of status and opportunity. Congratulate the organizers of today's lecture for having chosen the subject they have chosen. In the present scenario in the country, I think it is absolutely necessary for every citizen of this country to know his or her duties before seeking to exercise his or her rights. At a time when peaceful and harmonious atmosphere is sought to be disturbed by antisocial and anti-national elements in the country, it is high time that all the law-abiding citizens of this country should rise to the occasion and try to know their duties before demanding enforcement of their rights. Life as a whole in a democratic society expects guarantee of equality in all aspects: social, economic, cultural, and political. In the words of Jawaharlal Nehru, I quote, "Every man and woman must have opportunity to develop to the best of his or her ability." Unquote. Sri Jayaprakash Narayanji's ideas of total revolution were nothing but complete socio-economic transformation of society so that all the Indians could lead a life of equality and brotherhood. Our Constitution specifically provides for fundamental rights which are enforceable by the court of law, as also for fundamental duties which are, though not enforceable by writ of the court, yet they provide a valuable guide and aid to interpretation of constitutional and legal issues. And certainly, they are necessary for realizing the goals set out in the Constitution. The socio-economic justice provides sustenance of the rule of law. The concept of socio-economic justice is embodied in the form of directive principles, is the most dynamic, flexible, and revolutionary concept aimed at removing inequalities among the citizens of India. Undoubtedly, right to live is not confined to merely right to exist. It includes right to live with dignity, grace, and peace. Right to healthy environment, right to proper education, right to privacy, and the like, though not specifically provided under Part 4 of the Constitution, they are declared as fundamental rights by a purposeful and meaningful interpretation of Article 21 of the Constitution of India. The Constitution of India, acknowledged as one of the best constitutions of the world. It is dynamic with the provisions to meet the changes, challenges, and needs of society from time to time. In spite of this, and even after 72 years of the date of the adoption of such constitution, it is really surprising that we are faced with a situation whereby we are required to answer the question as to whether the citizens of this country are matured enough to understand the constitutional provisions in its true spirit without forgetting the national interest. In the present day situation, as it prevails in the country, serious doubt arises in the mind of any reasonable person as to whether we are sincerely proceeding towards attaining the goals envisaged under the Constitution. On 25th November 1949, while addressing the Constituent Assembly, Dr. Ambedkar, while reminding that, and mark this thing, while reminding that India had once lost its independence on account of treachery of some of her own people, had raised a pertinent question that, and I quote, will history repeat itself? It is this thought which fills me with anxiety, unquote. Unfortunately, it would not be an exaggeration to say that the antisocial and disgruntled elements in this country today appear to be out to transform Dr. Ambedkar's anxiety into a reality. Perhaps that is what must have prompted our legal luminary, senior advocate Sri Fali Nariman, in his recent book, Before Memory Fades, to say that, and I quote him, when we gave ourselves a constitution, it was certainly good to provide rights enforceable against the state or state agencies. But I believe that it would have made a difference in our attitudes and our national consciousness if we had also stressed on the duties and responsibilities of the citizens. Unquote. The so-called unrest sought to be created by those elements either in the form of violent agitations and destruction of the public and even the private properties or disruption of the developmental activities is nothing but an attempt to create an atmosphere to suit to their rotten intention to disturb the peace and harmony amongst the peace-loving citizens of this country, as well as smooth functioning of the administration in this country. Such circumstances bring misery and hardship to a common man, though it hardly affects those antisocial elements who are perhaps well looked after by possibly foreign elements, including countries nurturing terrorism. Today, many people in the country are found utilizing constitutional provisions more in the form of misuse thereof for destructive activities rather than using the same for larger benefit of the people of the country and in the best interest of the country as a whole. The divisible forces are trying to influence public opinion in the country with the sole aim of scuttling the development and progress of the country and to destroy the tranquility and harmonious coexistence of different communities in the country. There is every reason to doubt the involvement of foreign hand in such activities, because manner and the extent to which such activities are being carried out in the country, the same cannot be possible, at least without appropriate support from the land beyond that Indian territory. It is therefore high time to enlighten the common man with the constitutional provisions with the sole aim to energize the national and patriotic spirit in the common man. The Constitution undoubtedly ensures various rights as fundamental rights. But it should not be forgotten that every right carries with it a fundamental duty. Right of equality cannot be exercised without ensuring no injury to the equally entitled people around us. As I am entitled for right of equality, similarly, people around me are also entitled for right to equality in their favor. Therefore, no fundamental right is to be assumed as absolute right in favor of single citizen of the country. Every right has to be exercised, bearing in mind that similar right exists in favor of other citizens. Hence, the exercise of right has to be without violating the duty towards others, particularly in respect of similar rights in favor of others. One cannot say that he is not concerned about the fundamental rights of the other citizens. The basic principle underlying law of equality is that law must operate equally on all persons under the like circumstances. It is therefore well settled law that to treat unequals as equals also violates the rule of equality. It is therefore necessary for every citizen to know his and her obligation towards others before seeking to enforce any fundamental right in his or her favor. Unilateral exercise of such right with no concern for others' right would only lead to anarchy and would be dangerous for survival of democratic institutions. Take an example of right of freedom of speech and expression. In fact, nowadays, it is most misused right by many people. The freedom relating to speech and expression does not mean that one can exercise his right in violation of similar rights in favor of others. The freedom assured in relation to such right is always to be exercised, bearing in mind the similar right exists in favor of others. Being so, freedom of speech is not limitless, although limits are not specifically prescribed. They are to be understood depending upon the facts and circumstances in which the right is sought to be exercised. They would differ from case to case and would depend upon the circumstances in each matter. There cannot be any straitjacket formula or universal rule as such in that regard. And therefore, rightly the framers of the Constitution, in their wisdom, have left it to the people to realize their obligations while seeking to exercise such rights. The present day situation which we face is such that everyone is interested in exercise of his or her rights to the fullest extent with the least concern and attention to the corresponding duty he or she is expected to perform for proper enjoyment of such right in a civilized and in disciplined manner. There appears to be a general belief that rights guaranteed under the Constitution are absolute and with no restriction. Coupled with this is the general impression that freedom means total and complete freedom. When one thinks of freedom, he is concerned only about his own freedom. He has no concern about others' freedom. This may be either because ignorance of constitutional obligations or on account of lack of proper knowledge of connotation of the rights guaranteed under the Constitution, or it could also perhaps be intentionally done with some hidden agenda. It is not possible to make any generalized statement in this regard. In the present situation, and particularly after lapse of 70 years from the time we got the freedom, and one is more convinced to believe that such type of attitude would more be on account of some sort of negative and destructive revolutionary ideas sought to be generated by some anti-social elements, including perverse, fanatic, and insane persons, with the intention to destabilize the administration in the country and to ensure that the country does not prosper, and involvement of an encouragement for the same from foreign lands is in this regard cannot be totally ruled out. If a person who burns the Constitution in public in violation of the duty under Article 51A, he cannot assert that meeting or assembly at which it was burned by way of demonstration against the government should be protected by freedom of expression or assembly guaranteed under Article 19. Though the duty though the duty as such is not legally enforceable in the court, the state can legislate laws to prohibit any act or conduct in violation of any of the duties enumerated under Article 51A of the Constitution. And the courts obviously could uphold the same as a reasonable restriction on relevant fundamental rights. Even before the introduction of the article relating to the fundamental duties in the Constitution, the Honorable Supreme Court had held in Chandra Bhavan Boarding's case that, and I quote, "It is a fallacy to think that under our Constitution there are only rights and no duties. The provisions in Part 4 enable the legislatures to impose various duties on citizens. The mandate of our Constitution is to build a welfare society, and that may be achieved to the extent the directive principles are implemented by legislation." Unquote. In deciding about the constitutionality of any statute, the courts cannot ignore the directive principles and the fundamental duties provisions in the Constitution. Even when there is possibility of admitting two constructions to a statute, while ruling about the constitutionality thereof, certainly the courts would be inclined to accept the one which favors the upholding of the constitutionality thereof, considering the object of the statute being in consonance with the mandate of Article 41 of the Constitution. Over a period of time, the provisions contained under Article 51A of the Constitution have assumed greater importance and are of great help to the administration to maintain law and order in the state. The Supreme Court in Om Prakash's case clearly observed that, I quote, "The fundamental duties enjoined on citizens under Article 51A should also guide the legislative and executive actions of elected or non-elected institutions and organizations of the citizens, including the municipal bodies." Unquote. And in Aruna Roy's case, the apex court held that the national curriculum framework for the school education, which incorporated study of religion in the curriculum of the educational institution, wholly maintained out of state funds, as envisaged under Article 28(1) of the Constitution, is in consonance with the fundamental duties enshrined under Article 51A. It should never be forgotten that the natural resources like air, water, soil, including mine ore, cannot be utilized if utilization thereof results in irreversible damage to the environment. The total lethargy and with surreptitious cooperation between antisocial elements, greedy white-collar criminals, including political crooks and money grabbers, has resulted in completely neglecting these very important provisions of law comprised under the Constitution. Fortunately, some states are slowly trying to invoke these powers in order to put an end to the violence and unrest in the society and the tendency to cause damage to the public and even private property in the name of agitations. Sorry. In fact, towards the end of last century itself, the Supreme Court has directed the states to take immediate steps to prevent destruction and damage to the environment, the flora and fauna, and the wildlife around the sanctuaries and national parks. Unfortunately, the result thereof is not known clearly. While exposing the displeasure for accelerated degradation of environment primarily on account of lack of effective enforcement of environmental laws and non-compliance of statutory norms, it was held by the Supreme Court in M.C. Mehta's case that, and I quote, mining operation is hazardous in nature. It impairs the ecology and the people's right to natural resources. The entire process of setting up and functioning of the mining operations requires utmost good faith and honesty on the part of intending entrepreneur, unquote. And therefore, the apex court had directed that, again I quote, the regulating authorities have to act with the utmost care in ensuring compliance with the safeguard and the standards to be observed by such entrepreneurs, unquote. Indeed, if these observations were strictly observed by all the people who are in the field, certainly the today's situation would have been different. It is therefore necessary that a person intending to exercise their right to establish any industry or to carry on any business has to ensure that their industry or business would not adversely affect or be injurious to others. It is high time not only for the citizens to know their duties prior to the exercise of their rights, but even to the administrators and executives to know their obligations towards the citizens and implement them in the true spirit in which they need to be implemented. It is also to be borne in mind that the politicians, in the name of doing justice into the minority, the rights of majority are not to be bulldozed with total unconcern for such people and particularly about their sufferings. In the name of giving opportunities to the minorities by granting reservations in every walk of life, the excellence should not be made a victim. The Supreme Court, in AIMS Students' Union case, at the beginning of this century, had observed that, and again I quote, in the era of globalization, where the nation as a whole has to compete with other nations of the world so as to survive, excellence cannot be given an unreasonable go-by and certainly not compromised in its entirety, unquote. In fact, recently I came across one poem written by a young law student who is also the grandson of great legal Goan luminary, Manoroba Uzgaonkar. His name is Shukra Sudin Uzgaonkar. He has written one beautiful poem in the book published by him regarding the present situation in the world. It is worth reading, and I'll read 4 stanzas from one of these poems. The poem's heading is An Alien Speaks. It reads, a planet which is home to every known vice, where chaos and destruction is the order of the day. Even gods, before entering it, would think twice, for the devil is to whom its inhabitant pray. A planet which is redolent of the jungle, but trees on it are made of concrete. There are no laws and life is brutal, for its decisions who walk on 2 feet. The planet where the native must fight amongst themselves simply to stay alive. To help, if a hand is offered, they bite. To each his own is the mantra to survive. A planet on which creatures are drowning in a cesspool of sadistic pleasure. If one starts to escape, the others start pulling. They are destined to remain as savages forever. Wonderfully written and described the present situation, which is the most unfortunate situation in the world. And this is primarily because we all human beings have forgotten our duties. The opposition to the government and its activities are necessary for healthy growth of democratic setup of administration. For the purpose of corruption-free administration of the country, having democratic setup of administration, presence of its opposition is absolutely necessary. But opposition cannot be merely for the sake of opposition. It has to be healthy and constructive and should not be destructive one. It has to be necessarily in the public and national interest. When the development scheme is introduced normally, it is done after proper study of the matter and with proper planning. If such a scheme is to be opposed, the opposition should be only after proper study of the scheme and after finding out real faults with it, and not as a matter of course, and certainly not without application of mind, because opposition should not result in merely creating chaos and anarchy. As I said earlier, right to freedom of speech and expression does not entitle a person to publicly condemn somebody as criminal even before the investigation by lawful authority is completed and adjudication of charges by judicial institution results in some in person being declared as guilty of commission of criminal offense. What is happening today? Persons are openly declared in media trial to be guilty even before investigation is completed and court adjudicates upon the charges. Investigative journalism does not contemplate media trial of a person, and that too even before the completion of investigation and adjudication of charges by lawful authorities. At the same time, it is established law that no one can be put to undue restraint, nor anybody can be arrested by the police only for the sake of pleasure of their political bosses. The arrest has to be necessarily on satisfaction of the police officer about the link between the person to be arrested and the offense that has been stated to have been committed, and need for such person to be under restraint during the course of investigation. Apart from the rights of others, which are to be borne in mind before seeking to exercise one's own rights, it is also necessary to bear in mind that for healthy society, the citizens have to observe proper discipline and observe ethics and protocol in day-to-day life. In today's world, acts of even one person can seriously affect the peace of the society. It should not be forgotten that the rule of law is a basic rule of governance of any civilized policy. The scheme of the Constitution of India is based upon the concept of rule of law. For achieving the establishment of rule of law, the Constitution has assigned special tasks to the judiciary in the country. The Honorable Supreme Court, therefore, in Arundhati Roy's case, had observed that, and I quote, "The maintenance of dignity of courts is one of the cardinal principles of rule of law in democratic setup," unquote. The credibility of functioning of justice delivery system and reasonable perception of the affected parties are relevant consideration to ensure the continuance of public confidence in the credibility and impartiality of the judiciary. That was the ruling of the Supreme Court in P.K. Ghosh's case. That is not to say that the public should be a mere silent spectators to a rotten judicial institution. In such a cases, definitely public can raise its voice, but the same has to be in a manner and following no the corrupt activities in such institutions to law. I am reminded of a simple message given by a great man, Sri Dalai Lama. He said, and I quote, "Our prime purpose in this life is to help others. And if you cannot help them, at least do not hurt them," unquote. This message needs to be remembered by every time we seek to exercise our rights. So while exercising our rights, we have to ensure that exercise our rights do not hurt others. One may have right to move freely, but freely does not mean by causing annoyance or hurting others. Presently, you are required to move by wearing mask. If we do not wear it, then we are inviting problems not only to ourselves but even to others in public. Certainly, masks are not to be worn as a fashion, but it is a need of the time. So exercise of rights should always be preceded by necessary precaution not to cause harm to others by exercise of such rights, and duty in that regard should not be ignored. Our main goal is to develop the society with complete brotherhood and peace. The message given by Sant Jnaneshwar years ago, centuries ago, still remains a dream. He has said, Duritache timir jao, vishwa sadharma surya paho, jo je vanchil tote laho prani jata. It should be our endeavor to bring it into reality and transform our society into a welfare society in real sense. It is for the younger generation in particular to give a serious thought to this aspect. Our country is full of diversities. In the words of Jawaharlal Nehru, the diversity of India is tremendous. It is obvious. It lies on the surface and anybody can see it. But there is unity in the diversity. And Nehru had said, some kind of a dream of unity has occupied the mind of India since the dawn of civilization. It is our duty to ensure that the unity is not allowed to be sacrificed just for the impish delight of some disgruntled elements. And therefore, before we exercise the right, we must always know our duties and make every effort to fulfill them. I am greatly indebted to the Constitutional Law Club, the Goa Legal Services Authority, and particular Chairman Justice Sonak, as well as Karelo College, Bargaon, and I'm thankful also to Srimati Sayonara Lad, the Secretary or Member Secretary of the Goa Legal Aid Services, for giving me this opportunity to address you all, particularly the youngsters, and for making this nice arrangement for address of this lecture. Undoubtedly, direct interaction with the students would have been certainly of a great pleasure. However, in the present situation, being not possible nor permissible, we have to observe the required discipline and rules. In any case, my sincere thanks to one and all. Let me conclude by saying that let all be happy, let all be healthy, let all be safe, and let all be blessed by Almighty God. Dev Baranguru. Yes. She's not there.
Yeah, she's. Yeah. Thank you so much, sir, for the kind words. And I am sure our students and all the viewers must have taken the advantage of the words spoken by you. I would now like to, on this occasion, it's my pleasure to announce a Constitutional Day quiz, which is held by the Department of Library Information Science in association with the Constitutional Law Club of our college, which is conducting a Constitution Day quiz to to spread awareness about the Indian Constitution and its framing. The quiz is free of cost and participants will be provided with the e-certificates for the same. Scoring more than 35%, they will get a certificate. Quiz link will be available to you all on this channel as well. On this, I will be pasting it on the chat. Besides that, now I request our principal to kindly propose a vote of thanks.
A very good afternoon to everyone here. It is my pleasure as the principal of the college to propose this vote of thanks. Even greater pleasure than His Lordship had in addressing all of us. At the outset, I thank wholeheartedly Honorable Shri Justice R.M.S. Khandaparkar, retired judge of the Bombay High Court, for making time and spending so much of your efforts in preparing and delivering this invaluable speech for our students. Sir, you will remember having coming to college about 5 years ago, where you addressed us at an international conference. You look the same freshness in your countenance and the same level of thinking. We are very impressed with your speech, and I'm sure the students have learned a lot. Thank you, sir. I also thank Srimati Sayonara Tellis-Lad, who is the member secretary of the Goa State Legal Services Authority. She is not just an alumna of Kare College. She is a very close, dear friend to the entire faculty of our college, and does not leave any stone unturned to partner with her alma mater and make things happen for the law college. So along with her, I also thank the other office bearers and the staff of the Goa State Legal Services Authority. Thank you, madam. A few in-house thanks as well. I have a very dynamic team of the members of the Constitutional Law Club. So we have Ms. Rosanna Correa, we have Mrs. Yamini Dalvi, Mrs. Niharika Chari, and Mrs. Ruchira Naik, all assistant professors who made this day happen with all the planning that was involved in it. This is the academic dimension of their activity, but we also have a technical dimension without which in these times of pandemic, it's so difficult to reach out to the numerous viewers. So I thank our own system administrator, Mr. Abhijit Rege, who has spent a lot of his efforts to make this happen. I also thank the VVM, the Vidya Vikas Mandal technical team of Mr. Rupesh Shirodkar, who is the administration manager, and Mr. Ezan Dias, who is the lab instructor, and other members along with him, who have given us technical support to have this celebration. All the teaching and non-teaching staff of Govind Ramnath Kare College of Law, I'm sure each one of you have pitched in the little bit that is required to make things happen. Thank you all very much. I also acknowledge and thank the Department of Library and Information Science, the librarian in particular, Mr. Anand Salve, and of course the members of the Constitutional Law Club who have conceptualized this Law Day quiz. And as the moderator had just announced, the link of which is available both in the chat of Google Meet as well as YouTube, and we expect wholehearted participation from all of you. So once again, I thank Honorable Shri Justice R.M.S. Khandaparkar for his very clear, lucid thinking, and all others who have mentioned for having made this day possible. Thank you, and have a nice day ahead.
Thank you.